Set. Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Let's face it, most listeners of this podcast are primarily drawn to movies for their captivating plots. Whether it's the thrill of suspense, the joy of laughter, or the rush of sadness, films offer an escape from the stresses of reality. They serve as a powerful medium for people to connect, expressing their passions, thoughts, and emotions. But, have you ever wondered how they're made? How are those movies? The ones that evoke a whirlwind of emotions, joy, anger, sadness, suspense, embarrassment, safety, coziness, actually made. For over a century now, the process of making a film has more or less been the same. Since the release of A Trip to the Moon, often regarded as the first movie ever made, the procedures have been reasonably remained unchanged. But what exactly is this process? What are these procedures? Today, we'll dive into the 4 key stages of filmmaking. Firstly, there's pre-production, the planning phase, encompassing tasks such as script writing, storyboarding, and budgeting. Next up is production, where the planned vision is brought to life through filming. Then comes post-production, the editing stage, where footage is refined, visuals are added, and audio is manipulated to make sure the film is the best it can be. Finally, there's distribution, the crucial step of ensuring your movie reaches audiences worldwide. Today we'll be sitting down with filmmakers to explore their journey through this process. We'll dive into how they shot and edited their films, their strategies for distribution, and even talk about the future of the industry. Now without further ado, let's learn how to make a movie. The process of pre-production is arguably the most important stage when making a feature film. Needless to say, making a movie would be very hard without extensively planning and visualizing what you want in the final piece. This process starts with the idea, the inspiration for making the film. Matt Patron,
my name is Matt Patron,
made a documentary to memorialize his brother who was killed in Afghanistan. He explained that he
wanted to have something for my children when they were born. At the time, I had a daughter, and I'm like, well, how would I introduce my brother who's no longer here to her?
Because this is a documentary, the planning stage is very different than if he were to produce a narrative film. The bulk of planning was getting permission from the military to film certain things on the grounds, and also writing interview questions and voiceovers.
So it was a little bit different with my film in planning, because a lot of the story was the people that he served with. But I mean, I guess that's how I started pre-production. Yeah. Then there was the physical part of like writing voiceover, and then writing good interview questions for these guys that were with him that weren't insensitive. And then the whole process of just getting the Marine Corps to let me to do it, which was horrible, but that's probably another story. So
Matt's pre-production process was very similar to that of Ian Michael Oliver's.
My name is Ian. I run Say Something Productions on social media.
In Ian's first short film, Hands, a man is confronted with a hard and quite frankly terrible life. Then he finds boxing as an escape from this very hard and difficult reality. Ian goes on to explain that his inspiration for his short film was based on the movie Nobody.
Okay, so that movie specifically, there's like a progression of time in the very opening scene of him just kind of living his life very terribly, and like because he was like an ex-military or something like that, he was like a spy or something, right? So he was living a very miserable life, and so we wanted to show kind of the perspective of this man, this boxer, living kind of like that terrible life.
Usually, after the idea is formed and the filmmaker knows what they want in their piece, they will go on to the writing portion of the process. This includes script making and storyboarding. Making the script is usually the most tedious part of the filmmaking process. This is where you develop your story, characters, and scenes to make your film the best it can be. Matt's and Ian's writing processes were very similar to one another. They didn't have one. Because Matt's film was a documentary, everything he filmed was candid and natural, meaning it wouldn't make any sense for Matt to create a script for a film that is meant to be natural. As said before, his writing process was mainly for voiceovers and interview questions. Ian's process also didn't really involve writing. He told his actors and actresses to ad-lib their own lines and simulate as if they were actually in that particular scene.
In the beginning was ad-libbed by our actress and actor. Cameron came up with kind of like a small reference point to go off, but the actor and actress were basically meant to just ad-lib the scenario of like husband and wife fighting. So there wasn't a whole script, but the whole pre-production process basically started with conceptualization.
Storyboarding is the process where you visualize the story, plan out shots, and determine how you'll create your film by sketching pictures. For Ian, he created a mood board and shot list. A mood board is essentially the same thing as a storyboard, but you take other assets and resources from other sources to capture a certain aesthetic or mood. A shot list is a list of shots that give a detailed description of each shot that the piece is going to include, such as where the subjects are and the camera movements. Both of these techniques help gather inspiration, organize visual elements, set the tone, and can help you adjust or refine aspects of your piece that you originally had but want to change.
It's really easy to kind of start breaking down a mood board. So when Cameron and I decided to create a short film, the goal was to, one, come up with a concept, and two, start mood boarding that concept. So we kind of we were kind of on the same page. We both wanted to do boxing. Yeah. And in that, we wanted to create some scenario. So that was how we began to start conceptualizing the process. And like our mood for the opening shot was from the movie Nobody. And so once we had that, we started the framework process, which is basically getting images that we really loved. And those stemmed from the movie Nobody. They stemmed from Creed, and then they also stemmed from other images that we picked from frame set and shot deck. Those are the two things that we were really using to pull the imagery for the conceptualization part of that piece.
Now that you have a secure plan of what you want to include in your film, you need to figure out how you're actually going to be able to make it. One way of doing this is by budgeting. There are many things to budget for when making a film, most important being equipment, pay for crew, food for crew, marketing, distribution, etc. So it's important to budget for these things and allocate the money smartly so costs don't go out of control. It is actually very easy to go over budget if not careful.
So by the time we had gotten like money, I had already filmed a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So like the money actually went toward the trip, and then it went toward me like getting like a steady cam, like one of those like balanced steady cams, so I could like have like some smoother shots in it. And I actually did get a computer with it so I could edit, and I also got some software. So it actually went towards like things that I actually needed. So when we went, the money that I had from Kickstarter, like we used that to like buy us lunch the week that we were in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And then my friend and I, we flew to Florida, and we used the money for that too because we wanted to go to the EOD base and all that kind of stuff there. So we did use the Kickstarter money for that. But the Kickstarter money also went toward backer rewards. So like t-shirts and like bumper stickers and like things that people kind of want from that, because I did have some people that like did donate over $500. Yeah. So it was kind of like you have to have something to give those people to make them think that their purchase was worth, you know, their dollar investment. So yeah,
$1,000 a piece. That was our budget. So like $2,000 was our budget. We went way over. Even keeping it as low budget as possible, it still cost us around like $5,200, I think. And that, I mean, even in that, in the film industry, I don't know if you know anything really about it. Like anything under $100,000 is considered low budget filmmaking, right? Yeah. So $5,000 is extremely low, especially for the crew. I think if I was to have pitched this to a client, it would have been probably a $20,000 to $30,000 budget, and we did it in 5.
Yeah.
So that in itself is kind of a feat, and I was pretty impressed on that.
Yeah.
In itself.
When you hear the phrase making a movie, this is the phase that typically springs to mind. It's here that the crew brings to life all the groundwork laid during pre-production by capturing it on film. This is where the creative integrity and the style of the filmmaker are expressed and how their vision is brought into reality. However, to gain a comprehensive understanding of the filmmaking process, we must delve into the intricacies of the roles behind the scenes. Behind the director is arguably the most important job on set. Typically, the director had the inspiration and motivation to make the film in the first place. They work closely with the screenwriter, producers, and other department heads to interpret the script and translate it into a visual narrative. They are the creative direction dealing with composition, lighting, audio, camera angles, etc. Matt Patron and Ian Oliver have something in common. They were the directors and brains of their films. They envisioned their film's concept and skillfully took on the roles of director, director of photography, and editor to bring their creative vision to life, each with its makeshift crew.
Yeah, like I did everything.
Yeah.
Because like it was me. Like I mean people helped me. You know, my wife would like help me just with like the kids and like stuff like that. Like I knew what I even like composed some of the music for it. Yeah, because my friend did most of the songs, but there were a couple that I was like, yeah, I can probably do this.
Yeah.
So I made some like loops myself with a piano, and I don't know. So for better or worse, that's kind of how I like view myself, as like just being a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Yeah.
So like every decision I made was mine. But I would always ask people though, because sometimes like when you get so close to something, you don't know if you're like driving in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you have like a crew?
I did, but they weren't like film people. Like I found friends, and I was like, hey, can you like be my boom person? Can you be my person that's going to ask the questions this day? So I actually had like some really close friends that were close to my brother that were like, yeah, we'll do this with you. So I kind of made this like weird ragtag crew. Yeah. But then as like I started doing it, I found more people who wanted to be involved with it that were like more video people. Like I had that, for better or worse, I had like a 3D title opener. And the guy that made that was actually one of my 3D professors in college. So like, as I started to like, the ball started to get bigger, like more people came on. The guy that did the sound in it was the guy who mixed Hasbro commercials in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because like when you start doing stuff, sometimes it's just you. And then more people like start believing in what you're doing and they'll follow you. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I've been very blessed and fortunate enough to make really good friends in the creative space and keep those connections by building those relationships and showing up for other people. I've done a lot of free stuff for my friends in the hopes that they would return the favors, and oddly enough, that definitely worked out in my favor. I was very blessed in that situation to have. It's very awesome to have. I mean, it's like a crew of probably 10 with the actors, and actresses. So pretty sick for $5,000, honestly.
Yeah. And you said that you did like a lot of different stuff, like gaffer and director and DP, right?
Yeah. So I mean, me, myself, and Cameron as well. Basically, I had our hands in a lot of the entire piece. My friend Jasmine Q, she led the gaffer, so she was like lead gaffer, and then obviously as us being DPs, we kind of helped assist if she needed it. But she's obviously great at lighting. Yeah. And then she had like an assistant gaffer, like a second gaffer who helped do a lot of that too. So yeah, we had our hands in a lot, but like I also trusted my crew. Like I trusted Jasmine to light it as well as she could, and she did a great job doing so, especially with the help.
Yes, the jobs behind the scenes are crucial to make a film, but what are those roles without cameras? When it comes to filmmaking, you have two primary options for cameras, film and digital. But what's the difference? Film cameras use a slim, light-sensitive strip of plastic, capturing images in a traditional manner. These cameras remain a staple in the creation of blockbuster hits like Oppenheimer, which was filmed using an IMAX 65mm camera. IMAX, a technique known for its high-quality resolution and suitability for large screens. The 65mm refers to the width of the film stock, resulting in an overall higher resolution. Film cameras are frequently preferred for filming due to their ability to seamlessly blend lights and colors, resulting in visually pleasing pieces. In contrast, digital cameras rely on sensors composed of millions of tiny squares. When light hits these squares, an image is formed. However, this means that the scope of what is captured is limited to the sensor's perspective. But why aren't more people using film cameras like the IMAX 65mm? Well, it all boils down to cost, mobility, and obtainability. Both of our interviewees used digital cameras mainly because they already own their own cameras. They were smaller and mobile, and they didn't have to rent a really expensive camera, which is what is usually the case when you want to use a large, high-quality film camera. And don't get me wrong, digital cameras are still very good. In some cases, digital cameras look better in the end than film cameras. Cameras like ARRI and RED are used in major Hollywood films today.
So I used a Canon MXF 300. It wasn't a 4K camera, so it was just 1080p HD. It was the best I could get at the time, like on my budget. And then I used a Sony XD cam. And the Sony I used for the interviews, which I regret because I just had issues. The cards for Sony were proprietary cards, so you couldn't just like use any card. You had to use these like memory sticks in it.
Yeah.
And they would often, when I used the camera before, they had like lost some footage for me, so I was like concerned the whole time that I was going to lose footage. So yeah, so it was those two, which I wish I would have used the same camera, but I just didn't have the funds for to so I'd use different cameras, which I guess is okay on a documentary. So
the FX6 was the primary camera. We used an FX3 for shots that you just couldn't really get with the FX6. So like trying to mount the FX6 on a Snorri cam, and mine's pretty cheap. It's too heavy. So we put the FX3 on the Snorri cams. Those POV shots are FX3, and then like the C-stand top-down shots are FX3, but everything else is the FX6 as the main.
But if we're being completely honest, you could have all the film equipment, experience, and crew that you want, but all of it is obsolete without a story. How will you be able to keep your audience enticed by your film? James Cutting, a psychology professor at Cornell University, looked into this. He studied the relationship between film and our cognitive processes. He saw that as time went on, shots and lighting changed significantly in movies in order to keep the audience engaged in the film. Cutting found that the average shot length has decreased from 12 seconds in 1930 to 2.5 seconds today. He presented a scatter plot made by Barry Salt, a British film enthusiast, who calculated the average shot length of thousands of different movies made within 100 years. The plot showed a decreasing trend, proving that shot lengths are decreasing as time goes on. Cutting is not exactly sure why this trend is happening, but many believe it's due to the music, film, video, and MTV era, but there isn't an inflection point in 1982 on the plot. Cutting believes that a factor in this trend is because earlier movies had a lot of people in those shots, so the filmmakers had to make the shots longer for the audience to assess the situation and know who all was in the shot. Cutting emphasizes that people naturally have a short attention span. To compensate for this, over the years, filmmakers have tried to mix it in a variety of different shot lengths to keep the viewer involved in the movie and make them not mentally wander off. This is because the movie full of short-length shots tends to make the audience confused, and it will demand a lot more attention from them. A movie filled with long-length shots will make the audience snap out of engagement and, quite frankly, be bored. A mix of these shots will help the viewers lose themselves within the movie. Film noir is a bad example of this because filmmakers back then relied heavily on longer shots. That is why it is very hard to watch one of those types of movies now. Cutting also explains that the use of light and color throughout the decades has made the audience more involved while watching the film. He states that the move to digital cameras and editing software has made it possible for filmmakers to manipulate the light and have a greater dynamic range for their audiences to pay attention to the right stuff. For instance, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, there's a scene where Voldemort is using his wand to unleash his wickedness, and the frame is almost entirely black, except for when his wand lights up and reveals his hand and head. This controls where the audience looks. You don't see in older films, especially films made before the 50s. Cutting studies help us see the evolution of film and video, not only in terms of equipment used, but also in how films are presented and exhibited. Furthermore, they also show us that the evolution of film and video is an ongoing process, adapting to the preferences, expectations, and even attention span of each era's audience. Now that you have all of your assets for your film, it is time to splice all of them together into your final piece. The process of editing can be a very complex process that involves gathering all of your footage and splicing it together, manipulating audio, and adjusting and grading the color to ensure that your film is the best that it can be. Editing software and technology today are very advanced, like Adobe Premiere Pro, which has usually been perceived as the hallmark of professional video editing with its wide array of editing tools, color correction, audio mixing, and other stuff. As Matt explains, these technologies for editing haven't always been this advanced.
So it actually went towards like things that I actually needed. Now that stuff by now, today's standards is all outdated.
Yeah.
So it kind of is like, it shows you how quickly like technology like goes the way of the dinosaur, and you need new stuff now.
Before, a long time ago, editors actually had to manually cut their film used for the movie and tape or glue the film together to transition into another shot. This is why the certain transition is called a cut. But later, as technology advanced, computers came onto the scene, and all of these software like Premiere Pro were starting to be used by more and more filmmakers. Other software like DaVinci Resolve, Cinema 4D, and Dolby Atmos have upped the standard for film editing with their powerful abilities to color grade and correct, create 3D animations, and mix high-quality audio respectively.
So we use DaVinci Resolve to edit. Cameron and I just basically would either pass the project back and forth, like we'd re-export like a project, and then he would have all the files and I had all the files, so we just had to relink those because we tried Blackmagic Cloud and it wasn't great. So we would just do that and like FaceTime call each other or Zoom calls and be like, okay, this, and then like Cameron did all the color and I did all the sound. So like we had our mutual editing parties, and then he would do his own color grading and he'd pass it off to finalize it with the sound design that I did, and then we uploaded it, and that was it.
From what I've heard, like DaVinci Resolve is like the new kid on the block, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Hollywood standard now, or like you know, it's the standard now with just, I mean, color grading alone, you kind of get like a Photoshop style feel.
Yeah.
To like being able to do that with video, which you just can't get with, I personally think, Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, DaVinci has its faults, like their sound panel and like editing sound design is really hard in DaVinci. But like color grading, the flexibility, and only having to pay a one-time fee instead of giving like Adobe Premiere $60 a month to crash on you all the time. I think that's why DaVinci kind of has that lure, like drawing people into, okay, one-time buy. All these panels are like right here. They're easy. It's user friendly, and you can color like crazy on it. So why not, right?
Yeah.
I had a Mac Studio that I bought for that purpose. So it was like a Mac Pro. At the time, it was one of the big silver towers. I brought it in here, so I have it. Had a really nice like Mac monitor. I used all Adobe software for it because that's what I had learned in college. So that's what I was familiar with. And I used Cinema 4D. That's where I kind of started my relationship with Cinema 4D. I used a software called Buju, which was like a motion tracking professional software that cost $5,000. So I did teach myself how to use like some new software for it. I used Adobe Audition up until the point where I gave it to the sound mixer to edit it. And I think he might have used Logic or Logic Pro in his studio to edit all that.
The distribution of your films is crucial in the video making journey. All of the effort poured into crafting this fantastic piece of art, why would you let it sit on your computer collecting dust? You want to aim for your film to reach as wide an audience as possible. Several factors contribute to achieving optimal viewership. Among these, the release month stands out significantly, with July emerging as the most lucrative period for movies in terms of gross revenue. Sarah Joseph's 2019 paper provides solid evidence demonstrating that July hosts the highest percentage of successful movies. We can see this in full effect too.
Christopher Nolan, widely regarded as one of the greatest directors, strategically scheduled most of his films' releases for July, recognizing the heightened potential for attracting large audiences to theaters during this vacational time. But the release month isn't the only factor. Genre and movie ratings also play a pivotal role in making your movie be seen. Joseph's research demonstrates that comedies often emerge as the frontrunners in generating successful movies. The appeal of humor seems to transcend demographics, drawing in diverse audiences and driving box office success. Similarly, the impact of movie ratings cannot be overlooked. Rated R movies in particular have a distinct allure, often tapping into edgier themes and content that resonate with audiences seeking more mature, thought-provoking experiences. These movies tend to captivate viewers with their unfiltered storytelling and uncensored portrayal of reality, carving out a unique niche in the film industry landscape. Now that you know what type of movie does well in the box office, how do you get it in the box office in the first place? One way we will be looking at this is from film festivals. Across the globe, approximately 3,000 film festivals are currently in operation. These events serve as a starting ground for aspiring filmmakers and a platform for established ones to gain further recognition. From simple film festivals like the Cleveland International Film Festival to the illustrious ranks of the world's premier events such as Cannes, Berlin, Venice, Toronto, and Sundance, the spectrum of film festivals is diverse and dynamic. Matt Patron, however, went a very untraditional route in order to make his movie be seen.
When I finished everything, I knew that there'd be a way that I have to distribute it. So I made a lot of mistakes with that because it was the first time I'd ever done it. So what I did first was I put things on DVD, which I should have never done that. What I should have done is like reached out to somebody for distribution, then done a premiere, then the DVD stuff. But I did everything backwards because I just was like, I don't know, I was just making it all myself and I made mistakes. So what I did was I had a premiere at the Canton Palace, which it was sold out, so it was pretty awesome. So there was like a high with that. So I did distribution like last. I started shopping it around to distribution places, and there was one that like almost bid on it, but they were like, have you showed this yet? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, why would we take it? Because now you've already peeled the excitement off of it. So like, I ended up going through a distribution called Bitmax. I did submit it to film festivals. I won the Marine Corps Heritage Film Festival and I won the My Hero Film Festival. I did go to the Marine Corps Heritage one. It was in Virginia because I won like first place honors for it. So, but I did submit it to other ones, but it's kind of just like they say with like submitting like if you have a book or whatever. Yeah. So like the big ones that are out in like California, I did do like 2 of those. I got a letter back, like a Dear John letter, like sorry, this isn't our view right now or what we're doing. Yeah. So yeah. So okay. That's, yeah.
As we wrap up our exploration of the filmmaking process, it's evident that cinema has undergone a remarkable evolution over time, and this evolution is far from over. From the early days of manual film cutting to advent of sophisticated digital editing software, technology has played a pivotal role in shaping the way films are made. The modernization of filmmaking tools has empowered aspiring filmmakers to bring their visions to life, sparking creativity and diversity in storytelling. Additionally, the rise of digital distribution platforms has provided filmmakers with unprecedented access to global audiences, bypassing traditional barriers to entry. Looking ahead, we can expect further advancements in technology to continue driving innovation in the filmmaking process. Falmouth University, in the article How Technology Has Changed the Film Industry, explained that different techniques are coming into play with filmmaking, like artificial intelligence, where programs are getting so advanced that just a simple prompt can generate a very real-looking video, and smartphones, where a lot more high-level productions are utilizing smartphones to create their short films and music videos. These are just a few techniques that are poised to revolutionize the way audiences engage with cinema, blurring the lines between fiction and reality.